All right, so we have a new prime minister in the UK. Old Boris Johnson is gonzies. Now, by the way, Boris Johnson always was hilarious to me for the simple reason that at the same time we had Donald Trump in this country, this like overweight older guy with blonde hair. Well, it's dyed obviously, but it's blonde nonetheless. Like the same thing happened in the UK. This overweight older guy, he's younger than Trump, but older guy with blonde hair. It was very strange that those two were like at the same time, you know, in power. It was one of those moments of like, God damn, we live in a simulation, don't we? Isn't this so fucking weird? Anyway, so this is in NBC News. Here's what you need to know about Liz Truss, Britain's new leader. Sometimes compared to the UK's first female leader, Margaret Thatcher, Truss has also been accused of being a political chameleon. So apparently, back in the day, she was in favor of getting rid of the monarchy, based, and she was in favor of legalizing marijuana, based. So those things were good, but political chameleon is right. Another comparison that makes sense is like Kyrsten Sinema. She started out, you know, as she was part of the Green Party, Kyrsten Sinema was. And then, you know, over time, she slowly became like one of the worst, if not the worst, probably the worst Democratic senator, where she's basically Republican light. If you could even say light, she might just be flat out Republican, right? So, similar thing happened here. Now, they make the comparison to Margaret Thatcher. Now, Margaret Thatcher is before our time, most of the people watching this, but just think of Margaret Thatcher as like Ronald Reagan in a dress. That's Margaret Thatcher. And she was terrible. And the comparison is not even like, you know, the comparison is even more strong than they're making it sound here. And in fact, Truss is leaning into that, which is super yikesy. So anyway, here's some specifics on Truss. As a girl and a young woman, I keep calling her Truss, it's Truss. Liz Truss, wait, is it Truss? It is Truss. Liz Truss protested against then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher and called for the abolition of the monarchy. Decades later, having risen through the ranks of Thatcher's Conservative Party, Truss, 47 years old on Tuesday, was appointed the United Kingdom's Prime Minister by Queen Elizabeth II. As she heads to number 10 Downing Street, Truss looks eager to rule in the image of the famously blunt and strong-willed iconoclast whose legacy still divides the country. Her victory means she will become the country's third female leader after Thatcher and Theresa May. The Iron Lady, as Thatcher was known, was the 20th century's longest-serving British leader and birthed an ideology, Thatcherism, that still dominates the party with its low-tax, high-growth economic liberalism. Now, by the way, just so everybody understands, when they use the term here, liberalism, the context of that is not, they're like liberals in the context you think of. Liberalization of the marketplace is to remove rules from the marketplace and sort of let the free market do its thing. That's what they mean by economic liberalism in this front, not like being to the left of center of the political spectrum. That's not what they mean. Okay, just to be clear. So low tax. So again, Ronald Reagan in a dress, right? And usually when they say low taxes, they don't mean for working class people. They made that clear time and time and time again. When they talk about low taxes, they are talking about for the wealthy, and they think that unleashes the beast of the free market. Serving as premier from 1979 to 1990, when she was forced to resign by her own government, Thatcher was a strident cold warrior and a supporter of free markets, especially close to President Ronald Reagan. One of Britain's most divisive prime ministers, reviled and revered in almost equal measure to this day. She is best known for her policies on deregulation, privatizing state-owned companies, and smashing the power of unions. She died in 2013. So that was Margaret Thatcher, evil demon lady and a witch. Whether intentional or not, observers and the public have pointed out Truss appears to have a habit of recreating iconic Thatcher public appearances. So let's look at the specifics here. On the left, of course, is Thatcher visiting troops in Germany in September 1986 in a tank. And then on the right, Truss is doing it during a NATO exercise in Estonia in November. So it's not, look, again, she's leaning into it. And this is one of those people, you know, one of the many reasons why she's super yikesy is because we all know why she's in politics. We all know why Truss is in politics. You look at pictures like this, it's all an exercise in narcissism, you know, and self-aggrandizement and seeing yourself as this historic figure and doing it by copying a not good historical figure. More. While serving as Foreign Secretary, Truss was accused of consciously mirroring Thatcher by posing in a Challenger 2 tank while visiting British troops in Estonia, reminiscent of a famous picture of Thatcher in a Challenger tank in Germany in 1986. When visiting Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov at the Kremlin in February, she wore a faux fur hat that was again compared to that worn by Thatcher on a trip to Russia in 1987. Come on, man. During the Conservative leadership contest, Truss wore an outfit strikingly similar to one Thatcher had worn for an election broadcast in 1979, a black blazer and a white shirt with a bow tied at the front. So again, just flat out copying her. I think they have another picture further down that shows Thatcher wearing that. For Truss's critics, the similarities to Thatcher are at best premature and at worst ludicrous. I don't think there's anything in it. They're completely different people. Truss's supporter, Andrea Andino, 52, insisted outside the venue where Truss announced the new leader of the Conservative Party on Monday. Andino wore a t-shirt, "In Liz We Truss." Oh, please. She's different. I don't think she will follow Thatcher in any way, she added. What are you talking about? By the way, she's a conservative. Thatcher was a conservative. She's open about her ideology being similar to Thatcher. You know, deregulate, lower taxes on the wealthy. Now, by the way, I saved the best for last. Oh, allow me to point out before we get to that, she has the charisma of a dirty diaper. Listening to her talk is like watching paint dry. It is, oh man, she's just bad at this. She's just terrible at it. It's astonishing. I mean, and look, there are many upsides of a parliamentary system, but one of the downsides is, you know, if the party elites effectively get to pick their own leader, and you vote for the party, not the individual, right? Then they can pick the person who they prefer, who they think, you know, checks all the boxes, and we end up with this. We end up with this woman. So anyway, the worst part for last. You ready for this? Okay. Asked how she'd feel about unleashing global nuclear annihilation, incoming UK Prime Minister Liz Truss didn't hesitate to announce she's ready to do it upon taking office tomorrow. She'll already preside over a substantial boots-on-the-ground UK military presence in Ukraine. Okay, now, when I read that description for Michael Tracy, I thought, well, I don't know. Let's watch and let's see. He put the video here. Let's see if it lines up with his description of events, because that seems super extreme, doesn't it? Like, really? Nuclear war? That casual? You make your own mind up.
Now, look, here's another question. One of the first things, and very briefly if I could, one of the first things that will happen when and if you become Prime Minister, you'll be ushered into a room, very privately at number 10. Will be laid out in front of you what are called the letters of last resort, your orders to our Trident boat captain on whether you, Prime Minister Liz Truss, is giving the order to unleash our nuclear weapons. It would mean global annihilation. I won't ask you, would you press the button? You will say yes. But faced with that task, I would feel...
By the way, I love what the reporter here says. Given that question, you'd say yes. I'm not going to ask that question. Man, the mindset of these elites is astonishing. Like, well, of course I'd say yes to global annihilation. If need be, you press the button, you destroy the world. What are you going to do? It was a tough day, tough situation. When you got to press it, you got to press it. You know what I'm saying? Like, Jesus Christ, man. Do you guys hear yourselves? It gets worse.
Physically sick. How does that thought make you feel?
I think it's an important duty of the Prime Minister. I'm ready to do that.
If you look at her face, it's clear to me she's giving the answer that she thinks she's supposed to give. She looks like a deer in headlights. She looks like a child being asked if they took a cookie out of the cookie jar when their mom said they weren't allowed to. I'm going to run that back a little bit. And again, after this, there's a follow-up. And again, it gets worse.
To unleash our nuclear weapons. It would mean global annihilation. I won't ask you, would you press the button? You will say yes. But faced with that task, I would feel physically sick. How does that thought make you feel?
I think it's an important duty of the Prime Minister. I'm ready to do that.
I asked how it would make you feel.
I'm ready to do it.
Okay, that's your answer. Liz Truss, thank you for those answers. Ladies and gentlemen, Liz Truss.
Oh, I love the clapping, too.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Wow. I mean, that is some video, isn't it? So Tracy didn't exaggerate at all. I'm ready to do it. Yeah, I'm ready to do it. The way that these elites think about World War III, global nuclear annihilation, nuclear winter, it's astonishing. But you know what? At the end of the day, they want to appear tough and strong. And they're not going to be the ones who experience the fallout of this. You know, they're going to be in their, nuclear safe bunkers somewhere, tucked away in a mountain. You know, they have contingency plans because they're, as as George Carlin used to say, it's a big club and you ain't in it. They're in the club. So they don't get to experience the worst of the fallout. And so for them, it's just like, oh, I have to say the right thing here, which is, of course, I'm tough, I'm macho, I'm strong. And, if need be, I'll do it, bro. I'm ready for it. I don't even care. I mean, at least the questioner was like, I feel physically sick if I had to do that. Because that is the normal human reaction. I mean, really, the normal human reaction is when that button is in front of you, when you're getting pressure to press it, do you have the wherewithal and the moral fortitude and the ethical core to say, I don't know, man, I can't really do it. A lot of people don't know this. There's a story, there might be multiple of these stories, but there was a story about how I think a Russian submarine, the leader of a Russian military submarine was told effectively, what do they call those? Admirals? Might be admirals, I don't know. Was pressured to press the button. And it was only because so they thought that a war may have already broken out. They had bad information. And so they had to make the call. And there was pressure to press the button. And this military leader of a Russian submarine didn't do it, refused to do it, and decided, I can't do it because if I press it, like, what if we're wrong about the information we have? If I press it, then it does begin nuclear war. It does annihilate everybody and everything. We screw all of humanity. So that person had the moral fortitude. I don't know his name. Post his name in the comment section if you guys remember the name. Because that military leader had the moral core to say, I'm not doing it, that prevented untold numbers of deaths and perhaps the end of humanity as we know it. Because, once they launch a nuke, then we launch a counter nuke and, how many millions and millions of people die? And what does the world look like today in a situation like that? So I think people have this false sense of security because of the game theory idea that if everybody's got nukes, then, everything's okay because there's stability in the fact that it's mutually assured destruction. There is an element of truth to that, but, that discounts any sort of externality, any situation where it's like an accident or a misunderstanding. And, that story I feel like is an eye-opener for people. And also, by the way, the story about how we nuked Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the first-hand accounts on the ground there of how utterly abysmal that was and, what that did to Hiroshima and Nagasaki and all these innocent civilians. And then here we are. And now at a time when there's a hot war going on with Russia and Ukraine, and the West is throwing all the money in the world and all the weapons in the world into Ukraine, they want them to fight the battle. Now you're casually talking about nuclear war, and you're like, yeah, I pressed the button. Oh, for the love of God, man. Jesus Christ. I mean, it's terrible. This is terrible. So there you have it. There is your new UK Prime Minister, and I don't think she's a good one, to say the least. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.